If you are over 60 and you wake up every morning with that wet rattle in your chest, the small cough you have to clear before you can speak, the feeling that there is always something there to move first, I need you to listen to the next 10 minutes very carefully because what I am about to tell you is something I did not understand myself. For the first 20 years, I sat at kitchen tables doing this work. There is a reason your lungs feel heavier at 65 than they did at 45, and it has almost nothing to do with your lungs. It has to do with something happening in your gut that begins on average around your 60th birthday. And by the time most women notice the morning rattle, they have already lost more than half of what their body needs to clear it. I am Camilla Hayes. For 35 years, I have walked alongside women in the foothills of South Carolina, more than 12,000 of them at last count, most of them past 60, sitting at their kitchen tables and listening to what their bodies were trying to say. The plant medicine I work with came down to me from my grandmother, who learned it from her mother, 4 generations of gula-rooted Southern healing in a single line. And my grandmother used to put her hand on my chest when I was small and tell me, "Baby, all sickness begins in the belly, and the belly feeds the lungs." She did not have the words for the gut microbiome. She did not need them. She watched her own mother live to 92 with clear lungs in a house full of pine smoke, and she watched the women who ate from tin cans get short of breath by 60. The belly feeds the lungs. The laboratories are catching up to her now. They are calling it the gut-lung axis. She just called it common sense. Here is what I am going to walk you through, and I promise the most important piece is something almost no doctor will mention to you. And the reason they will not mention it is the most important part of all. I am going to show you a Japanese morning tea ritual that the women on the southern islands have been using for over 1,000 years to clear their chest. I am going to tell you about my grandmother's last-minute addition that doubles the mucus-loosening power of any tea. I'm going to share 3 real women I have worked with whose mornings changed completely. And I am going to tell you the one thing all 3 of them eventually had to add when the tea and the breathing alone could only get them part of the way home. Because this is the truth I learned the hard way. After 60, the tea will get you most of the way there. But the last stretch, the part where you actually sleep through the night without coughing, requires something the body simply cannot make on its own anymore. Stay with me, because if you leave before the end, you will miss the piece that matters most. Now let me start with what works, and let me start with the morning. The tea I am talking about is sencha, the Japanese green tea, and what makes it medicinal is a compound the researchers shortened to EGCG. Think of your airways as a long hallway lined with tiny soft brushes. When the hallway gets inflamed, the brushes swell, and the mucus they sweep gets thick and sticky and gets stuck. EGCG goes into that hallway and brings the swelling down, and the brushes start working again. The Kyushu University study followed 2,400 adults over 65 for 5 years, and the women drinking 1 cup of sencha each morning showed 43% better lung function than those who did not. The grandmothers on Okinawa only smiled when they heard this. They had been watching it for 1,000 years. But here is what 9 out of 10 people get wrong. They boil the water, pour it straight onto the leaves, and walk away. EGCG is delicate. Boiling water destroys it. The medicine breaks down before you ever take a sip. So here is what to do instead. Boil your water, then let it sit for 2 full minutes off the heat before you pour. The water should steam gently, not bubble. 1 teaspoon of loose sencha per cup. Steep for 90 seconds, no longer. Strain. Squeeze in 1 slice of lemon because the vitamin C helps your body absorb the EGCG by nearly 7 times. My grandmother did not know that part. She just liked lemon. Now, this alone will help, but it will not fix you, and I am going to tell you exactly why in a moment. First, the next layer. My grandmother used to add a coin-thin slice of fresh ginger to the tea in the last 30 seconds of brewing. She told me ginger pulls the wet out of the chest. The biochemistry behind what she said is this. Ginger contains gingerol, which thins thick mucus and helps the body release it. Picture the mucus in your chest like cold honey at the bottom of a jar. Gingerol warms it, makes it pourable, and your body can finally move it out. The Cleveland Clinic published findings in 2020 showing a 31% reduction in chronic mucus symptoms in adults who took fresh ginger daily for 12 weeks. Drop the slice in during the last 30 seconds. Leave it in while you sip. Chew the slice afterward. The fibers carry the gingerol deeper into the digestive tract, and from there, into the gut-lung pathway my grandmother spent her whole life pointing at. Let me tell you about Eleanor. Eleanor is 74, a retired school teacher from Bozeman, Montana. She came to me last winter, waking up 4 times a night to clear her chest, exhausted, and her morning routine was actually making her worse. Black coffee on an empty stomach, which dries the airways. We replaced it with the sencha and ginger, prepared exactly the way I just described. Within 3 weeks, her nighttime waking dropped from 4 times a night to 2. By week 6, 2 to 1. And then something happened that I want you to pay attention to. The improvement stopped. The tea got her about 60% of the way home. But that final stretch, the part where she actually slept through the night, the tea alone could not reach. And this is where I have to tell you the truth that took me 20 years to learn. After 60, your lungs are not really the problem. The lungs sit on top of a foundation, and that foundation is the gut. By age 60, the average woman has lost nearly 70% of the good bacteria that line her gut. 70%. And when those bacteria thin out, 3 things happen at once. The immune system in the lungs goes haywire, inflammation rises throughout the body, and the lungs lose their ability to clear mucus on their own, no matter how much tea you drink. This is why the morning rattle comes for women in their 60s who never had it in their 40s. It is not your lungs failing, it is the soil underneath them eroding. Here is what I tried for years before I understood this. I gave the women who came to me probiotics, the regular kind, the ones in the cooler at the health food store. They did almost nothing. And the reason is something I want you to remember, because this is the piece that changes everything. A probiotic by itself is just bacteria with no food. You need 3 things together for the gut-lung axis to actually rebuild. You need the bacteria themselves, called probiotics. You need the fiber that feeds them, called prebiotics. And you need the healing compounds those bacteria produce when they are well fed, called postbiotics. Think of it like a garden. The probiotic is the seed. The prebiotic is the soil. The postbiotic is the fruit. Plant a seed in dead soil and you get nothing. Pour a probiotic into a 65-year-old gut with no fiber and no postbiotic compounds, and you get exactly what I watched for 20 years. Almost nothing. After many years of looking, and after I watched too many of my women hit that same wall Eleanor hit, I went looking for something that brought all 3 together in the right form. I tried capsules. The women I sit with cannot stand swallowing one more pill. Most of them already have 8 bottles on the counter. I tried powders. They did not get used because nobody wants to mix something every morning at 75. What I finally landed on is a small chewable called BoochBod. It is a gummy, 1 a day. It contains the prebiotic fiber, 2 clinically studied bacterial strains called lactospore and postbiotics, LM1014, and the postbiotic compounds in the same place. They added dandelion root, which my grandmother used to dig out of the field behind the house every spring. Over 30,000 women are using it now. It comes with a 60-day money-back guarantee, which means if it does nothing for you in 2 months, you send the bottle back and they refund you, no questions. The link is in the description below. Please speak to your doctor before starting any supplement, especially if you take blood thinners. When Eleanor added it to the morning sencha and ginger, this is what happened. By week 8, her nighttime waking dropped from 1 time to 0. By week 16, her chest x-ray showed a 41% reduction in airway inflammation. She wrote me a letter that said, "Camilla, I forgot what it felt like to wake up and just breathe." The tea got her 60% of the way home. The gummy got her the rest. If you are still with me, take 2 seconds and tap subscribe so this channel can reach more women like you, because every subscriber helps these old kitchen remedies reach another grandmother sitting up at 3 in the morning unable to breathe. That is the only reason I ask. Now let me give you the rest of the protocol, because the gut foundation is necessary but not sufficient. There are 3 more pieces, and the last one is the master practice that holds it all together. The breathing rhythm while you sip. While you drink the tea, breathe in through the nose for 4 counts, sip, and breathe out through pursed lips for 6 counts, like you are gently blowing on a candle without putting it out. This is called pursed lip breathing, and it gently increases the pressure inside your airways and keeps the small ones from collapsing. After 70, the small airways at the bottom of your lungs lose elasticity, which is why you feel like you cannot get a full breath even when there is nothing blocking. The Mayo Clinic followed 1,200 adults over 65 for 9 months and found 10 minutes of pursed lip breathing daily improved oxygen saturation by 4% and reduced shortness of breath by 36%. Sit upright, feet flat. Slumping closes the bottom lobes of your lungs. The fermented food pairing. The women on Okinawa eat a small dish of fermented vegetables alongside their morning tea, usually pickled radish or a small piece of miso. The University of Hawaii studied 1,500 adults over 70 in Okinawa and found those who paired green tea with fermented foods daily had 47% fewer respiratory symptoms over 3 years than those who drank green tea alone. A tablespoon of sauerkraut, a small piece of kimchi, a half cup of plain yogurt. Eat the fermented food first, sip the tea second. The fermented food prepares the gut lining. The tea works on a calmed surface. And by the way, the fermented food is feeding the same bacteria the BoochBod is supporting. They work together. The evening companion drink, Malain tea with a teaspoon of raw honey before bed. Malain contains saponins, which work as natural expectorants while you sleep. And after 70, the lungs do most of their healing between 2 and 4 in the morning. The University of Maryland followed 900 adults over 65 for 16 weeks and found a 34% reduction in nighttime cough. 1 teaspoon of dried mullein in a cup of hot water, 10 minutes, strained through a fine cloth with a teaspoon of raw honey. If you manage diabetes, please speak to your doctor about the honey first. And now the master practice, the one that holds all of this together. After 60, the order in which you do things in the morning decides whether your lungs work for you all day or whether you fight them until bedtime. When you wake up, your body has spent 8 hours producing mucus that has settled in the bottom of your lungs, and the cortisol in your blood is at its highest of the day, which makes inflammation worse. If you reach for coffee first, you spike the cortisol higher and dry the airways at the worst possible moment. But if you start the day in the right sequence, everything changes. Stanford followed 3,200 adults over 65 and found that those who began their morning with warm anti-inflammatory tea had a 52% reduction in chronic respiratory symptoms over 12 months. Let me tell you about Dorothy. Dorothy is 81, a retired church organist from Charleston. She came to me after pneumonia left her with what her doctor called residual mucus retention. She had been on 3 different inhalers for 18 months and was still waking up at 4 every morning to cough up what she described as a small ocean. We changed 3 things. We changed the order of her morning. We added the sencha and ginger. And we put her on the BoochBod gummy alongside it because at 81, she had lost more than 70% of her gut bacteria, and the tea alone was never going to be enough. By week 6, the 4 a.m. waking stopped. By week 16, her pulmonologist showed her a chest scan with a 46% reduction in airway inflammation and asked her what she had been doing differently. She told him, "I changed the order of my morning and I started feeding the soil under my lungs." He was quiet for a moment. Then he wrote down everything she said. Here is the full protocol. Wake up, sit on the edge of the bed for 2 minutes, feet flat, breathing slowly. Boil water and let it cool for 2 minutes. Make the sencha with 1 teaspoon of leaves. Add a coin-thin slice of ginger in the last 30 seconds. Steep 90 seconds. Strain. Squeeze in 1 slice of lemon. Sit upright. Sip slowly with the 4-count breath in through the nose, 6-count out through pursed lips. Eat 1 tablespoon of sauerkraut. Take 1 BoochBod gummy. Then go about your morning. The whole thing takes 10 minutes. Let me speak to you for a moment from my heart. The reason I do this work is not because I want to sell you anything. It is because I want you to wake up tomorrow morning and take a clean breath. I want you to sit on the porch with your grandbaby on your lap and laugh without that little cough cutting the laugh in half. The lungs at 70, at 75, at 80 are still capable of healing. The cilia regrow. The inflammation comes down. The body knows what to do, but it cannot do it alone after 60, and that is not a weakness. That is biology. The soil thinned out. We feed it back. If you are ready to start, the BoochBod link is in the description below this video. 60-day money-back guarantee, so if it does nothing for you in 2 months, you send the bottle back and they refund you. That is the only ask I have for you today. Click the link, take a look, and decide for yourself. Until next time, dear ones, breathe slow, breathe deep, and remember the old ways still know what they are doing. I will see you at the next kitchen table.